Welcome to the West Basin Municipal Water District Water Planning and Legislation Committee meeting, and I believe special board meeting for today. And we do have a quorum. Director Deere is on the phone, correct?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. And so I'll call the committee meeting to order. Greg, do you need to do a roll call vote right now, or do we go into public comments?
We'll do a quick determination of quorum with the roll call. So starting with Director Deere.
Here.
Director Gray.
Here.
Director Houston.
Here.
Director Williams. Director Alvarez. Okay, it appears we have a quorum with 3 present.
All right. Are there any public comments?
Okay, so we do not have any public comments here in the room. And so if there are any members of the public who would like to make themselves known and interested in making a comment, perhaps you can raise your hand on the platform. And I will trust our deputy board secretary to indicate whether anyone is interested. Okay, it appears that we have no public comments. Chair Gray.
All right, Mr. General Manager, would you go to the next item, please?
Okay, and our next item is presentations. And we have no planned presentations on the agenda. And I do have to apologize. I was hoping to make a few remarks of my own in recognition of Pride Month, if it would please the chair. But unfortunately, my email system is not working and my notes are in the email system. So I think I will have to just respectfully, well, actually, if you would allow me a moment, I would like to just make one comment of, if that would please the chair.
All right.
Okay, and let's see, I may be able to access my notes from my department cell phone. So let me try that route if I may. So forgive me for the delay here.
Well, you know, Mr. General Manager, you can always make any comments regarding whatever celebration we're doing for the month during the board meeting, at the board meeting.
Okay, we'll defer this item and I'll make my remarks at the board meeting. So thank you for that, Chair Gray. And I apologize for the little confusion there with that process. So then that takes us to the action calendar.
Okay.
Okay, and so we have the first action calendar item 5A, and I'm prepared to hand it over to our manager of water policy and resources development, Mr. EJ Caldwell, who can provide a quick presentation and staff recommendations on this particular item. So EJ, please take her away.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. General Manager, Madam Chair, members of the committee and board. The first item that we have for you is an action item. It is included in your board packet of 5A on packet page 3, and it is related to a support position on Senate Bill 4279 by Senator Padilla, as well as HR 7847 by Representative McNerney, related to the Water Efficiency, Conservation, and Sustainability Act of 2022. This bill is, or these two bills are intended to incentivize water efficiency upgrades and to establish programs to identify and repair leaks in our urban water retail systems. These measures would be funded through a suite of Environmental Protection Agency, EPA grant programs available to states, local governments, tribes, utilities, and nonprofit organizations. These bills would support water use efficiency by establishing 3 new EPA grant programs and authorizing each program anywhere from 20 million to 50 million annually for 5 years. This includes the following programs: water efficiency and conservation grant programs, which would authorize $50 million per year for entities that carry out water efficiency programs for the purchase, installation, or use of efficient fixtures, appliances, and landscaping. It's very important to note that West Basin Municipal Water District has programs related to all three of these in relation to outdoor landscaping, the removal of turf, as well as smart controllers. We also have appliance programs under our Cash for Kitchens program, as well as our Change and Save program, where we very recently provided specific rebates for high efficiency clothing washers. It's really important to note that 50% of these funds would be for entities that are experiencing drought conditions or under a governor declared drought emergency. Obviously, West Basin Municipal Water District, including the entire Metropolitan Water District service area, is of course under a governor declared a drought emergency. And very crucial to this effort, it's worth noting that 40% of those funds would be dedicated to low-income households or disadvantaged communities. The other two programs that are intended to be funded by this program includes the Sustainable Water Loss Control Program, where $40 million would be available for public water systems for annual audits and to establish water loss control programs. These programs are necessary for urban water retailers in the state of California that will be required to be in compliance with their water use efficiency targets beginning next year. The last program that's included within this suite of programs is $20 million for grants for efficient plumbing code adoptions. And of course, California, the state of California, is very progressive when it comes to passage of code provisions that require water use efficiency. Obviously, our municipalities and all urban water retail agencies would be available for grants under this program. And of course, the West Basin service area has done an amazing job of really identifying potential grant opportunities for our West Basin service area and of course, acquiring those grants. We feel very confident that the communities within the West Basin service area, as well as West Basin itself, would be eligible and have the opportunity to acquire these grants. And for that reason, staff is recommending that the board adopt a support position on Senate Bill 4279, as well as HR 7847. And this is the item before you. Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jay. Are there any questions? Here, Director Houston.
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
No, thanks.
Director D. All right.
No,
All right, I don't have any questions. Is the Director D or Director Houston the co-chair of the committee? I don't remember which one.
You're the chair of the committee.
Okay, so it's Director D, are you the one that I should ask if we should move it forward with the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, so it's okay. All right, we'll move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for that, Chair Grace. That will take us to our second action item on the action calendar. And so I'll hand it back to EJ to continue with the next item. So please.
Thank you very much, Greg. The next item that we have begins on packet page 31, and it is related to a support position on Senate Bill 4231 by Senator Feinstein, and is related to the support to hydrate the Environment, Agriculture, Municipalities Act, otherwise known as the STREAM Act. Also worth noting, this legislation, although spearheaded by Senator Feinstein, also carries two additional co-authors, including Senator Mark Kelly, as well as Senator Kristen Sinema from the state of Arizona. This bill was introduced on May 17th of 2022, and the STREAM Act is intended to provide much needed funding to increase water supply and modernize water infrastructure in California, as well as throughout the West. The bill specifically authorizes $750 million for storage, $300 million for water recycling, $150 million for desalination, which includes both ocean as well as brackish or inland desalting, $100 million for drinking water for disadvantaged communities, and $150 million for low interest loans programs. Obviously, these are opportunities for West Basin Municipal Water District to expand its incorporated water recycling programs utilizing low interest loans. This legislation is intended to build upon the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed just earlier this or late last year. Combined, these funds would provide California with more than 1 million acre feet per year, which is enough water for approximately 6 million people. In total, they would expect that 532,000 acre feet of new recycled water produced, as well as 85,000 acre feet of desalinated water. And again, I mentioned this earlier, that would include both ocean as well as inland brackish desalting, and 425,000 acre feet of upstream storage, including groundwater storage, as well as surface water storage. Again, West Basin and the West Basin Water Association has always looked at opportunities to maximize the use of groundwater storage. The incentives included in this bill, as well as the previous infrastructure package, incentivizes storage and conveyance projects and expand drinking water access for disadvantaged communities. The funds provide separate environmental restoration projects, and for the reasons stated herein, and I guess I should also include just a note here, because West Basin staff has been working with the Association of California Water Agencies in anticipation of legislation. ACWA has asked its member agencies to join them in supporting this legislation. So now that it has been introduced, we're happy to bring it forward for the committee and board's review. And with that, there is a recommendation that the board adopt a support position on Senate Bill 4231 by Senator Feinstein to support the Rehydrate the Environment, Agriculture, and Municipalities Act, otherwise known as the STREAM Act. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Director Deere?
No.
Director Houston?
Hey, this is Director Houston. No questions, but I support it. Thank you.
All right. EJ, I do have a question. Who are the proponents of not proponents, but opposition to the bill?
At this time, there are really no known opposition to the bill. Typically, under something like this, you do see a great deal of momentum built by the author. Senator Feinstein is the master of building support for her legislation as far as the initial press releases go. She again has done this. Her staff, John, of course, works overtime as far as building kind of that extensive list of all the agencies in support. In the most recent ACWA conference, there were a couple of agencies that had jumped out prior to the legislation being introduced. Again, the Association of California Water Agencies is of course leading the effort as far as building support. Metropolitan Water District is expected to take a support position, and I think that the list of supporting agencies will be built over the coming months. It's worth noting that specific bills of this nature do sometimes have a difficult time passing through Congress and, of course, getting to the president's desk. In recent years and in past legislative cycles, Senator Feinstein has done, again, a masterful job of taking her legislation, breaking it into pieces, and sometimes getting it into a larger infrastructure or funding packages. So in supporting this effort, we would continue to support it in whatever vehicle she decided to move it forward through. But again, she has asked for California member agencies to consider supporting it, and that was the reason for staff bringing it forward today.
All right, well, thank you. I'm okay with it, and Director Deere, are you okay?
Yes, I am fine.
All right, we'll move it forward with your recommendation. All right, any other item?
Okay, Director, Chair Gray, that takes us to our information calendar. And so we have 3 items on our information calendar, and we're starting with our first information item, and we have our water policy and resources intern, Irvin Rodriguez, here in person in the boardroom, ready to give a presentation on this particular topic.
Mr. Mr. General Manager, if I could maybe just really quickly highlight something. As our General Manager did mention, we do have our one of our newer interns, Irvin Rodriguez, here for this presentation. It's worth noting that Irvin is a recent graduate of Cal State University Long Beach with a degree in environmental science and policy. We've been very excited to have him as part of our team, and he's been assisting us with not only legislative and policy matters, but of course, water use efficiency. So we're very excited to have him here today, and he'll be presenting on State Water Resources Control Board's recent adopted regulations.
Thank you, EJ. Thank you, Greg. Good afternoon, committee and members of the board. I'll be delivering an informational presentation on the State Water Board's emergency regulation. You can find the presentation on packet page 145. We can move to packet page 145. Okay. So can we move to the next slide? So we'll begin on packet page 146 on California's drought. California has experienced more frequent and more severe drought periods over the past 15 years. According to climate experts, California is experiencing a mega drought, recording its first 4 months as the driest on record for California. Furthermore, the National Centers for Environmental Information have identified California ranked as record driest in the months of January to April of 2022 for statewide precipitation ranks, making it the only state to have such a ranking. Next slide, please. On March 28, 2022, Governor Newsom issued an executive order to address the drought conditions across the state. This order also directed the State Water Board to consider adopting an emergency regulation to increase water conservation. Next slide, please. In response to the executive order, in May 2022, the State Water Board adopted an emergency regulation that will ensure more aggressive conservation efforts by local water suppliers across the state. This action also initiates suppliers to implement, at a minimum, all demand reduction actions identified in level 2 of their water shortage contingency plans, which is meant to address a 10 to 20% cutbacks on water supplies. As you can see on the figure on the right, is a portion of West Basin's water shortage contingency plan addressing level 2 reductions with an 11 to 20% cutback. Next slide, please. The emergency regulation sets a ban on the use of potable water on the irrigation of non-functional turf at commercial, industrial, and institutional sites. However, the prohibition does not apply to recycled water and the use of water for the following actions: ensuring the health of trees and perennial non-turf plantings, addressing an immediate health and safety need, and watering non-functional turf that is deemed low water use with regard to plant factor and evapotranspiration rates. Next slide, please. For water suppliers with no contingency plan, with no water shortage contingency plan, they must implement at a minimum the following actions: initiate a public information and outreach campaign for water conservation, limit landscape irrigation to 2 days a week and only between the hours of 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. Lastly, they must implement and enforce an ordinance banning wasteful and unreasonable uses of water identified in section 995 of the California Water Code. This regulation, next slide, please. Getting ahead of myself. This regulation also requires suppliers across the state to submit a preliminary and a final annual water supply and demand assessment to the Department of Water Resources by June 1st, 2022 and July 1st, 2022, respectively. West Basin has submitted their preliminary assessment on May 30th and plans to meet the July 1st deadline for the final assessment. Next slide, please. In accordance with section 995 of the California Water Code, the State Water Board instituted a number of prohibited uses of water, which include outdoor watering that leads to excess runoff, washing vehicles without an automatic shutoff device, washing hardscapes that do not absorb water, street cleaning and construction site preparation, filling decorative fountains, lakes, or ponds that do not recirculate water, irrigation within 48 hours after it rains at least 1/4 of an inch of rain, and the irrigation of ornamental turf on public medians. At a minimum, local water supplies must implement reduction actions that align with the prohibition specified. Next slide, please. All demand reductions identified in suppliers' water shortage contingency plans are mandatory and are expected to be implemented on or around June 10th of this year. The taking of any action related to the irrigation of non-functional turf will result as a violation punishable by a fine of up to $500 each day the violation occurs. This enforcement will be at the discretion of the local water agency. Next slide, please. Ongoing drought conditions have amplified the need for greater conservation efforts in California. In light of recent regulatory actions at the state and regional levels, West Basin sees a great opportunity to collaborate with both water suppliers and water users within the district service area to take action that ensures continued water reliability through conservation programs and educating our communities as we face changing climate conditions and a more uncertain imported water supply. For commercial, industrial, and institutional customers, West Basin has the opportunity to work with such sites, providing assistance for transitioning to a more drought-tolerant landscape. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions? All right, thank you very much. Next item.
Okay, thank you, Irvin, for providing that presentation. It's fantastic to give our interns an opportunity to present to our board. So thank you for doing that. So that takes us to our legislative update for May 2022. And so EJ is prepared to give that update. But I'm going to just take a moment to excuse myself from the remainder of the meeting and also hand over the administration of the remainder of the agenda to EJ. And so thank you for doing that as I make my way to the meeting with Metropolitan and with Los Angeles. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff, for being here, President in the boardroom as well. Okay, take care now. Thank you, Chair Gray, and thank you, committee members.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee and board. The next item that we have for you technically begins on packet page 155, but we'll jump to our state legislative update from EML Pfas and Associates. That begins on packet page 157. And I think that the predominant discussion related to what's going on in Sacramento was related to this top item addressed within the committee report. And it does relate specifically to the Assembly and the specific position of the Speaker of the California State Assembly. It is noted here that on the last day of the House of Origin 4 deadline, Assemblymember Robert Rivas, a Democrat from Hollister, announced that he had the votes to take over as Speaker, replacing current Speaker Anthony Rendon. The following week, a number of parliamentary motions were made on the Assembly floor, resulting in two specific votes, one of which was to move forward, and of course, the latter was related to postponing and adjourning. At that time, after a 6-hour closed session, Democrats left their caucus and a carefully crafted joint statement was released, ultimately noting that Speaker Rendon would remain Speaker until the end of the session, wherein Rivas has the votes of the current Democratic caucus to succeed him. Now, of course, it's very important to note that the end of the legislative session does conclude in, of course, September with the deadline to sign legislation in October. But worth specifically noting is that there is a specific election coming up in November, which will drastically change the makeup of the California State Assembly. So any, of course, action taken by the caucus would be subject to kind of lasting throughout that election cycle. So this is something that we're going to have to carefully track. And of course, all of this is happening in what is normally known as a very crucial month in the legislative session. Of course, May 27th was the last day for legislation to be passed out of the House of Origin. That, of course, gets the bill to the next House. And there is a deadline of July 1 for legislation to pass out of their policy committees. So you're really seeing a rigorous effort by members of the California State Assembly and State Senate to move legislation through their policy committees. And of course, on July 1, they'll be leaving for their summer recess, which is a month long. So there's a lot of activity to be had. Of course, West Basin staff, as well as our general manager, is working very closely with Newsom, Pfas and Associates to track several key initiatives. We'll continue to bring those forward to you, of course, in the month of July, but we did want to highlight just a couple of things. First and foremost is the California state budget with the most recent constitutional changes as far as the budget process goes. The budget now has a very easy process to go through as far as passage by the California State Assembly. And the legislature did come forward with what we would call a two-way budget agreement between the Assembly and the Senate. And of course, passed that as Assembly Bill and Senate Bill 154 and sent that bill to the governor's desk. However, the administration did note that there were several concerns and what they felt were several untouched items based off of the governor's projected budget as well as his May revise. There were specific concerns related to ongoing funding obligations. And the reason for this is that when you have these funding obligations that are passed in 1 year and carry over to several future years, you do have the issue of how you're going to be paying for that, especially in a situation that we find ourselves in right now. First and foremost, there was a significant surplus, an unexpected surplus as far as what the legislative analyst was expecting. And so the legislature does have additional funding available to fund specific projects. However, the LAO did note that we are anticipated into going into a heightened risk of a recession, which could last up to 2 years. So what we obligate ourselves for now and we need to pay for in future years could have limitations as far as our ability to pay for those in the future. Last but not least, the governor did have a specific statement moving forward with this budget. He stated that while today is an important step forward, there's more work to be done. Specifically, he would like to see more immediate direct relief to help millions more families with rising gas, groceries, and rent prices. The governor's plan includes an additional $3.5 billion beyond what legislative leaders have proposed to help millions. And of course, we see this move forward with budget trailer bills. This has been somewhat of the action of previous governors, including Governor Brown, as far as augmenting what passes through in that initial budget bill. Newsom, Pfas and Associates, as well as West Basin staff, will continue to track this as it moves forward, and we hope to have something more for you in July. The next item that we wanted to highlight is the election results. Obviously, you see at the very top of packet page 158, you see the leaders there as far as the statewide offices. But I did want to highlight just a little bit below that, that we do have 2 assembly vacancies that were up for election in this last cycle. And it does look like candidate Tina Simone McKenna does lead Democrat and moderate Robert Pullen Miles. Obviously, Robert Pullen Miles is the current mayor of Lawndale. He's a former staff member to Assemblywoman Autumn Burke. So we are going to continue to track this, but I do believe that the winner has been announced as far as Tina Simone McKenna. Does anybody have any questions related to that specific seat?
I think you say, are there any questions? I don't hear anyone, EJ. See?
Not hearing any questions. I did want to highlight just a couple of bills and some of the activity that West Basin staff has been assisting with. On the bottom of packet page 158, we do have Senate Bill 230 by Senator Portantino. This is related to State Water Resources Control Board and specifically requires the State Water Resources Control Board to establish, maintain, and direct a dedicated Constituents of Emergency Concern, CEC program to assess the state of information and recommend areas for further study on the occurrence of CECs in drinking water and establish the CEC Action Fund. This is legislation that is sponsored by Metropolitan Water District as well as California Municipal Utilities Association. And approximately about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, Metropolitan Water District alerted its member agencies that they needed assistance as far as advocating on behalf of this bill. West Basin staff immediately contacted NPA, and NPA did assist as far as lobbying the office of Assemblymember Almer Succi because he sits on the Environmental Safety and Toxic Material Committee. So this bill was moving forward through that bill, and of course, West Basin wanted to assist. The next bill was Assembly Bill 1845 by Assemblymember Calderon. This is related to Metropolitan Water District of Southern California with alternative project delivery methods. And this bill is crucial to Metropolitan Water District's effort to expedite the construction and delivery of recycled water at the Regional Water Recycling Program. Again, this bill would provide a specific use of design and build procurement processes for certain regional water recycling projects. And so, of course, West Basin Municipal Water District, and working hand in hand with Metropolitan Water District, there's a great deal of a need and benefit to West Basin Municipal Water District to see that project move forward as swiftly as possible. On the top of packet page 159, I also want to note Assembly Bill 1655 by Assemblymember Reggie Jones Sawyer, one of the West Basin members of the California State Assembly. It is related to the state holiday and the Juneteenth holiday. This bill did pass out of Senate Governmental Organization unanimously. The bill now heads to appropriations. This bill adds the June 19th, known as Juneteenth, to the list of state holidays and authorizes state employees to elect to take time off with pay in recognition of the Juneteenth holiday. So I wanted to highlight that. And last but not least, there are two bills that I thought we previously discussed, and I just wanted to maybe provide just a quick update. Assembly Bill 2142 by Assemblymember Gabrielle related to the income taxes and the exclusion for turf replacement water conservation program. This, of course, is related to the tax exempt status for those rebates. It allows for taxable years beginning on or after January 1st, 2022 and before January 1st, 2027, a gross income exclusion for any amount received as a rebate, voucher, or other financial incentive issued by a public water system. West Basin has been supportive of this effort over the past several years. We've supported it both on the state and federal side. And it is worth noting that the bill is moving forward largely without any real opposition. However, just recently, the teachers union did give their opposition, noting the potential impact on the general fund. So West Basin staff is working with the committee consultants to track that and see if or how that might change our recommendation on that bill. And the other bill was Assembly Bill 2638 by Assemblymember Richard Bloom. This is related to school facilities, drinking water, and the water bottle filling stations. We brought this item forward last month as an information item, just to highlight this as well as another companion bill that would have required water bottle filling stations in all public buildings. This specific bill would require that new school construction and school modernization projects submitted to the Division of State Architect by a school district or governing body to include one or more water bottle filling stations. Obviously, West Basin's water bottle filling station program is widely popular throughout our service area. We've received great partnerships with school districts as well as our municipalities as far as promoting that program. And we're going to continue to track this, but it is worth noting that all opposition has been removed from the bill. So we might bring this forward to you next month for potential action. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to move forward to the federal affairs update, unless there are any questions.
Are there any questions? Hearing none.
No,
we can move
no,
on.
thank you.
Oh, direct. Thank you.
No, I said no,
All right,
thank you.
All right. Director Deere, you're okay?
I'm great, thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, EJ, please move on. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'll move forward to our federal affairs update. It does begin on packet page 187. And I did want to note that this is somewhat of a slower time in Washington, D.C. as far as legislative actions. We did have the initial two items that we brought forward today for specific action. And I did want to highlight just a couple of things. The Senate committee did hold a hearing on the Western Drought. It held a nearly 2-hour hearing on June 14th to address short and long-term solutions to the mega drought that has shrunk water supplies across the West, including the Colorado River Basin, which serves some 40 million users across 7 states. You can obviously see the witnesses that did provide testimony, but I did want to highlight some specific testimony that was provided. Of course, it's noted here, and I think it's the first major, or I guess the second major paragraph here. But the Southern Nevada Water Authority General Manager, John Edsminger, did note that there's little we can do to improve the Colorado River's hydrology. The solution to this problem, and by solution, I don't mean refilling the reservoirs, but rather avoiding potential catastrophic conditions, is a degree of demand management previously considered unattainable. And I think that statement really sets the bar for what we need to achieve, not just as Southern California, but as the state of California, as well as the Colorado River states. We're going to continue to move forward with, of course, West Basin's water use efficiency programs, but you're really going to start to see federal legislative efforts to provide opportunities for agencies like West Basin to really hit our communities where we have our higher water usage and drastically reduce our water demand. If you turn to packet page 188, you can see that the EPA did issue a drinking order for water health advisories for PFAS chemicals. The EPA additionally announced it is making available $1 billion in grant funding through the bipartisan infrastructure law for emergency contaminants, with a focus on small and disadvantaged communities. This could potentially impact or provide opportunities for communities in the central groundwater basin. So we'll continue to track this effort. The House Water Resources Committee did hold a hearing for the passage of the Water Resources Development Act, otherwise known as WRDA, of 2022. This is HR 7776. And this is typically the vehicle that West Basin Municipal Water District would pursue funding for our U.S. Army Corps of Engineers program and project under the Harbor South Bay project. We did receive funding at the tail end of last calendar year, and so we're excited to have the opportunity to pursue those projects. As such, we didn't have a funding request in this WRDA package, but we did want to note that the bill does include over 100 new environmental infrastructure projects or Section 219 projects that would be authorized through the bill. And I highlight that because you probably heard us on numerous occasions come before you and highlight that West Basin Municipal Water District is one of the few environmental infrastructure programs and projects moving forward, whether it be through WRDA, of course, or through the earmark process. But we note that because we are starting to see a lot of agencies look at that pot of money and find that it's looking pretty attractive in this time of drought and the emergency conditions that we're experiencing. So it will be a little bit more competitive, but of course, West Basin's programs have always done exceptionally well in a competitive grant process. If you turn to packet page 189, I just wanted to highlight a couple of additional things. You can note at the bottom of that page, we did note that Senator Padilla's introduced legislation. That was the bill that we brought forward today. And so I want to thank our federal lobbyist, Van Squayak and Associates, for the quick action as far as working with the author and his staff. And then also note that the Senate committee did hold a hearing on reclamation water bills. And this included both the STREAM Act as well as the previously passed infrastructure legislation. Because again, it is anticipated that these bills would work together to combine specific funding for the state of California, as well as the very dry western states. So with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my report, but I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, EJ. Are there any questions, please? All right, EJ, thank you very much. What's the next item on the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The last information item that we have for you is item 6C. It's our Metropolitan Water District report for May activities. And for this, we do have our water policy analyst, Tammy Hurley-High, here for the presentation.
All right, thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chair Gray, and members of the board. So this report summarizes recent activities and reports from Metropolitan that will cover the Delta Conveyance, the voluntary agreement, the climate action plan, drought restrictions, and the governor's visit to Metropolitan's regional recycled water demonstration facility. So first on the Delta Conveyance, DWR is continuing to develop a public draft EIR, which is anticipated to be released soon. And during last month's Water Planning and Stewardship Committee meeting, a presentation was provided from the Executive Director of the Delta Conveyance Authority, Mr. Graham Bradner. And that presentation included an update on the conceptual design objectives of the proposed Delta Conveyance project. And the State of California Department of Water Resources requested the Delta Conveyance Authority to develop conceptual design and engineering information for the CEQA process. And these engineering designs include the 3 alignments for the proposed project, 4 capacity options, along with 2 engineering project alternatives. So all of these designs identify efforts to minimize community effects, such as managing flood and seismic risk, minimizing construction activities that produce noise and greenhouse gas emissions, along with several other effects and disturbances. So this work reflects community input that has been collected through an established stakeholder engagement committee. So in 2020, the Department of Water Resources issued a notice of preparation with a description of the proposed project to inform the public about the preparation of the EIR in an effort to solicit input. Included in this report is a schedule for the proposed Delta Conveyance project. And in that graphic, you'll see it on the top of page 192. So that's a graphic that shows their schedule. And that dotted line, the vertical line, indicates where they are now on the schedule. Of additional note of interest, the Department of Water Resources has created a new story map on their website. And the story map provides key aspects of the Delta Conveyance project. And that information has been outlined very well on the website, and it provides a tour of the State Water Project. So for more information, a link is also provided in the report. The next item for Bay Delta voluntary agreement. Last month, the board expressed support for developing the voluntary agreement approach as an alternative in a State Water Resources Control Board's Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan update. And this voluntary agreement is a watershed-wide approach to coordinate action in the Delta. An MOU which supports a voluntary agreement does not commit Metropolitan to take any action. This voluntary agreement approach would allow the Bay Delta plan to be more robust and would allow for a non-flow measures to be considered along with the flow requirements. So because Metropolitan relies on water supply from the State Water Project, Metropolitan would benefit from the approach of the voluntary agreements. And without the voluntary agreements, there are significant risks of flow obligations of the State Water Project. Under the voluntary agreements, the State Water Project contractors would be sharing responsibility for new water quality standards with other water users in that watershed, and with more certainty of obligations that are passed on to water contractors by the Department of Water Resources. Next is the climate action plan. And the board approved a climate action plan that involved a set of strategies to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. The plan sets targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from Metropolitan's operations that include its conveyance, storage, treatment, and delivery of water throughout the Metropolitan service area. So earlier in October of 2018, the board authorized development of the plan. And in November 2021, a draft program environmental impact report for the plan was released. So the approved plan is a comprehensive, detailed plan was prepared to guide policy and planning decisions on operations water resources, capital investments, along with conservation and resource program in an effort to mitigate the greenhouse gas impact from their operation. Next item is the emergency drought restrictions. And as you are aware, Metropolitan adopted an emergency water conservation program in April. This emergency program requires member agencies that depend on water from the State Water Project to implement a 1 day a week watering restriction or live within a volumetric limits that they are allocated to, starting June 1st. The Metropolitan put out a press release on June 1st, which summarizes the actions and have been put into place along with maps of the affected areas that are dependent on the State Water Project supplies. Next is Governor Newsom's visit. As you may know, last month, Governor Newsom paid a visit to the Metropolitan Regional Recycled Water Program Advanced Purification Center. And Metropolitan and representatives from the sanitation districts facilitated a tour of that facility. The governor thanked Metropolitan and had expressed his support for actions that will build a more climate resilient water system. The governor's office did issue a press release highlighting Metropolitan's role in the recycling facility, along with highlighting drought response actions. Also, regarding the schedule for July board meetings at Metropolitan. So in July 2022, next month, the board will have a 4-week recess and they will cancel all committee meetings on Monday, July 11th. They will have their committee and board meetings scheduled for Tuesday, July 12th only. And their regular meetings will resume on August 15th and 16th. Next, regarding the board meeting actions, attached to this memo is a list of items that were approved last month in May, along with their respective board member votes. And also attached is a list of items for the June committee and board meetings. And moving on to the water supply condition. At the end of this report includes an attachment with the graphics with the current conditions as of June 2nd. So if I can just point your attention there as well, on top of page 206 of the packet. So if you look at that graphic on 206, looking on the left in the green shaded area for the State Water Project, Lake Oroville, the reservoir is shown at 55% of total capacity with 1.9 million acre feet in storage. And then for the Colorado River Basin on the right side of the page, this graph shows Lake Mead to be 29% of capacity. And Lake Mead's capacity has continued to decline from 31% last month now to 29%. And its elevation is 1,047 feet, down from 1,056 feet last month. And then on the second page, the final page of the packet, it's on the State Water Project in the green shaded area. From the left, on the left side is that 8-station precipitation index for the Northern Sierras, and it showed precipitation at 78% of normal. And down below that graph is the Oroville Reservoir storage chart, which is indicating 570,000 acre feet more in storage compared to last year. And then for the Colorado River, in the blue shaded area, the graphic for Lake Mead towards the bottom right corner is showing capacity of roughly 7.5 million acre feet. And as I mentioned last month, the Bureau of Reclamation and the Basin States have developed a proposal to reduce the risk of Lake Powell from falling below minimum power pool in the next 2 years. The Reclamation would have their operations release more water, about 500,000 acre feet, into Lake Powell from an upstream reservoir over the next year. And then releases from Lake Powell to Lake Mead would be reduced by approximately 480,000 acre feet. So these combined actions are intended to add about 1 million acre feet to Lake Powell. So with that, Chair Gray, this concludes my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions you or any of the other members may have.
Thank you, Tammy, for that report. Are there any questions?
No, thank you.
No questions.
All right. All right, thank you. I don't hear any other, any questions. Thank you, Tammy. EJ, are there any other items?
Madam Chair, there are none. The next item that we have on the agenda is closed session. We have no closed session items. And then item 8 is director's comments and future agenda items.
Thank you. Directors, are there any comments?
I have no
Director
comments.
Houston? Director Houston?
Nope, just a very good meeting, and thank you, staff, for all the reports, and also Irving, congratulations on your graduation. I'm glad you could present to us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Houston.
Thank you, and thank you, Urban, for presenting today, and all the staff, and all the reports and so forth. So thank you very much, directors. If nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, EJ. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank you.